Hello, Internet. Welcome back to another episode of Comics and Stuff. My name is Devin. I'm your host. Happy Saturday. Welcome back to just me talking to people on the internet about collectibles and things that we like and enjoy. Today, I've got two special guests with me, two of my best friends in the whole wide world, and they're pretty cool collectors as well. I've got Yaniv, aka Stray Flexin on Instagram, and Mikey, as in Mikey Comics, coming to us live from Texas. It's not actually live. This is pre-recorded, but whatever. So I'm going to bring them on in, and we're going to chat about animation cells today and educate ourselves about that market. So first in, Yaniv. Second
Hey,
in, Mikey. How are you, fellas?
good, good. How are you?
Good. I am doing fantastical. I'm glad I could finally pin you both down and get you both to come in at the same time because you guys have like the busiest schedules ever. But I'm happy that you are both here and I can just chat with you guys because I've had a few people be like, okay, when are you gonna do something about animation cells, production art, things like that? So I'm happy that I have the two guys that I know that are just this is like your thing. This is what you guys just know much better than I do. So I'm excited to break it down. First and foremost, if this is your first time to the channel, Yaniv and Mikey, I'd love for you both just to say a little bit of something about yourself. Yaniv, if you want to go first, just a little brief summary of who is Stray Flexin.
Sure. So I'm a lifelong collector. I've been, buying and selling, trading collectibles, specifically comics and art for the past 10 years or so. Just recently moved to Texas and working on some big projects that are kind of secret. But yeah, excited to talk to you about animation cells. It's one of my biggest passions. And, Mikey's really excited about it too. As you can see, he's all jittery. He can't wait to bust out some of those cells and,
He's got a big book with him.
yeah, and yeah, just ready to have fun, answer some questions.
All right, and Mikey, how about you?
So I'm Mikey Comics. I've been a full-time collectibles dealer for 5 years now. I started out in comics. I recently got into animation at the start of the pandemic, thanks to Stray Flexin over there. And he got me, hooked on it with Dragon Ball Z art originally. And then I just kind of fell in love with the medium. Being able to own my favorite scenes from my favorite TV shows like that. I mean, that just spoke to me immediately. So yeah, rock on.
Now, if there's anything that I know about you two generally speaking, seem to be kind of like ahead of the curve on collectibles. You guys have a really keen eye on figuring out what markets are coming up next, what markets are going to be really good. What is it that drew you guys to the animation cells? Is it just the art? Is it the significance of like TV history? I'm very curious. If Yaniv, you want to go first, we'll move down to Mikey. Yeah.
Sure. Well, the animation art is actually really cool because it's a combination of kind of collectibles and then nostalgia too, where a lot of these either TV shows or movies we saw as a kid, now to be able to actually own a piece of that show, it's literally like you're owning a frame from the TV show or movie. It's phenomenal. And if you just want to kind of spice up the walls a bit on your homes or just enjoy, collect and invest, I just think it's a good place to kind of start, where the comic art has gotten so expensive these days that I think people are finally kind of branched out into other forms of collecting art. And animation art's been, I feel like it's been overlooked over the past few years, and it's finally begun to kind of take off. So it's exciting. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Mike? What really drew you in?
I mean, just my love of Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
Persistence. No, it really it was an obvious choice. Like I said earlier, being able to own my favorite scene from my favorite shows, instant. I just clicked. And I'm a lover of art. And like you have said, comic art itself, my favorite comic art is well out of my price budget, but my favorite animation is not. And I can own some of the best works for a fraction of the cost of what you could for tenth of the cost, 100th of the cost as you could for comics.
Yeah, it's just as fun and entertaining and enjoying, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's it's incredible.
Yeah, well, and so there are animation cells that are completely affordable and for anybody to be able to get into, but there's also some animation cells that just go into the bazonkers, insane levels of money. There's several different layers to the collectible like animation cell world that I don't think a lot of people think about. Even I catch myself not understanding it sometimes, because I know that there's a few different parts of it. I mean, there's some sort of difference between American animation cells and Japanese animation cells. There's a difference between an animation cell and production art, and then there's also like the painted backgrounds which I know nothing of. So I'd really like to kind of break that down. If you know, Mikey, if you could start this off and tell me what is the difference just between like a cell and production art, just for the internet, for the the new person who is not well aware of this hobby.
Well, for animation art, in general, there's levels and stages that it goes through to then become an animation cell. So first, there's the animation drawing. In Japan, it's called the Duga. It's originally the Ganga, which is the rough draft, which is done by the key animator. Then the Duga is done by like the second in charge, and then the cell, the final product, is the exact replica of the drawing Duga, and that is what ends up becoming the animation cell. For background specifically, so for each scene, roughly 24 frames a second. So you'd think that it seems a little bit common. Well, it's not. They degrade if they're not kept in like, really well, kept environments. If you don't keep them in acid-free, paper and all that kind of stuff, they can really, change over time. So drawings are usually a little bit more common. Gangas are extremely rare and really sought after because they're done by the key animators, the guy in charge. They're really, really cool. Duga is more common. There's twice as many of those per Ganga. Per Duga to Ganga, there's twice as many. And there's equal number of cells to Dugas, but cells degrade. And those are the ones that you actually see physically on the screen. Okay. And yeah, and then also getting an original background, there might be, let's say, a few hundred cells per episode. There might be only 40 to 100 backgrounds per episode.
Right.
I mean, there would probably be more than a few hundred, but they definitely reuse a lot of the cells on backgrounds. So like the background would be just reused multiple times.
Oh,
in different scenes.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so the background's stationary. Yeah. And the other thing is too, like even though there's 24 frames per second, doesn't mean that every frame is a new cell, because a lot of times, with anime, it's like there's that shocked frame and it's like it's a still image, so it's being held there for a few seconds, where it's just the same cell, or someone's talking, so it's just the cell layer of the mouth that's moving, so it's actually less cells than that. But just to touch upon the production art and animation art, like production art just means art that was used in production. So there's post-production art, pre-production art, but production art is just a general term to describe art that was used in a production of a film or a TV show. And animation art specifically describes the art that was used in the animation. So, yeah.
Because like you said, there are like things like layouts and character design sheets and that kind of stuff.
It'll be all production art, but it's not necessarily, it's still in animation, but it's not going to be what you see on the screen there. And production cell versus...
extremely collectible still, and really, really cool stuff to own.
Well, and I suppose I've seen some animation cells where the cellophane that has the paint on it, there's like two layers of that. One has a character, one has like a piece of furniture that may move, and then there's the background as well. And that's an interesting thing where you where you had kind of pointed out that there might be a cell that just has the mouth and everything else is blank and flat. So, I mean, is there a market for people who collects like little things where it's just like the mouth or like a small moving piece of the body? Like, is that a market? Like,
no, generally they go along with the with the character with the cell behind it. So just to give
mouths.
Hey, there's a collectible niche for everybody. Okay,
there is.
Absolutely. We wouldn't be here without collectible niches. So you know what? I will let everybody do their own thing. If you want to collect mouths, man, hey. But so now,
more power to you, right?
More power to you. Now, so we were talking about Japanese ones where there's the Ganga and the Duga. What about for American animation cells, American cartoons, things like Cartoon Network, as brought to you by our background today, or for like Disney or things like that? What about those sorts of animation cells? Because I'm assuming that there's not a Duga and a Ganga for American ones.
Yeah, so they're just called different. It's just different terminology. Duga and Ganga is specifically the Japanese. It's Doga, really. It's specifically Japanese terminology for production sketch, like rough drawing, and then the finished drawing. So the Ganga was the rough one that the key animators do, and then the Duga is the finished one. And they still have that in American animation. They just don't call it by those names. But what's cool about the American animation cell collecting is that it's so affordable. Most of the shows are really, really cheap because thousands of them are out there. Whereas like some of the anime cells, depending on what anime it is, if they're really popular, they've already gotten so expensive and they're harder to find and they're harder to get from Japan. But the American stuff, like there's a lot of shows, like even like 90s X-Men, well, you can get tons. You just go on eBay, you'll find tons of stuff for 50 to 100 bucks.
I think it was maybe last September, Mikey, I called you because there was a guy, he had a whole bunch of like the animated Lord of the Rings
Yeah,
stuff.
those.
I was like, should I buy this? And you're like, dude, there's like, that's a lot. And he's probably like asking for like a lot of money for something that's pretty common or pretty, easier to find than say something from like Dragon Ball Z or Studio Ghibli or something like that.
Yeah, Ghibli's, it's a whole other level. But I think it's a good thing. I think it can help bring new collectors in that just want to own pieces from their favorite childhood, and it doesn't cost that much. So there's just different levels to it. Just like in comics, there's comics that are very expensive, and there's dollar bin comics that people can collect and enjoy. So
now the Studio Ghibli stuff. Sorry, not Ghibli. The Studio Ghibli stuff can go for really, really high prices. I've seen the auctions on like Heritage's website and all that stuff.
Even Madarake and everything,
and I've seen the one picture floating around that I think has floated between your guys' hands at one point. The Princess Mononoke one with the big boar god.
That's Mikey's.
That's Mikey's. Okay. Yeah, God, that thing is just so cool. If you don't mind me asking, what is a market on something like an iconic scene from a Studio Ghibli movie as opposed to like something from SpongeBob?
Yeah, I mean, like SpongeBob, you can get a really, really great SpongeBob piece with a matching background for $2,000, $4,000 for a great one.
At most, yeah.
For a great one.
Yeah.
Ghibli, you're gonna get a drawing for
it's like a doodle, like a little sketch.
It's like comparing like a modern comic artist that does a lot of sketch covers and then like a Jack Kirby page or something like that, where it's just like there's totally different levels of collecting. But with Ghibli, especially the key scenes with the matching backgrounds, they get expensive, like 80,000, 100,000. There was one that I think sold for 200 something thousand from Totoro. Yeah, so they get.
That was the slipper piece, right?
The shoe in the water sold for I think 30, which was also I think it was 30, which was also still pretty amazing. It's literally just a shoe in the water, but it just goes to show like that's the power of not just the animation, just of that franchise of that company. Like Ghibli is like Disney, right? It's so beloved around the world. People grew up with it. So
now and Disney's a good one to point out too. Disney stuff, I'm assuming so because I mean right now I know for a fact I could go on eBay and or whatever and Google or look up one of my favorite cartoons from when I was a kid, find an animation cell for a few $100s. Whereas Disney stuff in specific, because Disney's so iconic, I've seen their stuff go for several $100s to several $1,000s. I'm assuming that a lot of this stuff has to do with age, with the artist as well. When it comes to like Disney, would that be accurate? Like, are there notable artists within the cell community as well?
There are. There's like the all-time Disney greats, and there's like a list of those people there. But with Disney, it's one of the longest running animation studio companies in the world. So they started doing stuff in the late 20s and 30s up till now. So there's tons of different, so Disney art could either be really cheap or expensive, just depending on what you're collecting, because they just range from just the golden era of Disney to the Renaissance era. And then around the 1990s, like late 90s, Little Mermaid was the last Disney feature to actually use animation. Use actual hand-painted animation, so use animated cells. After that, everything else was CGI. So you could find some drawings from like Aladdin, which came after that, or Lion King. So some drawings, some storyboards, concept art, which is really cool. I collect some of those too. They're fun, but you can't actually get the cells because they all did those digitally. So it's just something to keep in mind, yeah.
And then kind of regarding like age, Mikey, this one's for you actually, because you'd kind of talked to me about it and you mentioned it a little bit as well. Storing these animation cells, the original painted pieces, especially because they can deteriorate over time when they're really old. And you were talking about like acid-free paper and stuff. I mean, tell me a little bit about how one can store these properly without damaging them or messing up the cellophane. How do you do yours?
the two biggest killers of animation art are sun and heat. So you want to keep them in a colder environment and definitely away from the sun.
Okay.
There are these special binders that you can buy. There's these little art things.
Toya,
That's-
Toya art portfolios.
Yep.
Pretty much, yep.
It's what everyone has.
You got one? There we go.
Have them.
Whip out your portfolio.
They're these black sheets of paper that are that absorb acid. So
Yeah, and the good thing is they're open at the top. Cells have to breathe. Another thing is cells are it's important for them to breathe. So when you frame them, there's a whole discussion online whether to frame cells or not. At the end of the day, cells are meant to be enjoyed. But if you do end up framing them, you just have to be careful not to expose them to any UV light and make sure that they could breathe. Some people take them out every now and then, and it's important. And also you want to, if you're handling cells, it's better to handle them with gloves or have them in a bag already so that you're not putting any fingerprints on them. The oils from your fingers can get on them and all that.
I know that like you can go to like a frame shop and request like there's like Michael's, they have the master glass, which is like UV protected. It's like an extra $30, but you can like get something framed in that. They have like acid free tape and boards and all that. So you can there are ways to frame it. It's just going to cost you a little bit.
You have to do it properly, because
$1,000 frames for animation art.
Yeah, I mean it gets pricey when you specially mat it and use special windows and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you just want to make sure you're preserving the art well, right? Because we're just caretakers of these beautiful pieces of art, and we want to preserve them. So just make sure that people are doing it right. Yeah.
But drawings, on the other hand, those you can just
that's the beauty about drawing. Yeah, you could.
Really nice. Those are really nice pieces that you can put up on the wall, easy.
So yeah, I think I am down to like 3 or 4 animation cells. I had to sell a few because I'm saving up for a house. So I'm just about there, but I still have some of my favorites. I don't have the Raditz piece anymore, Yaniv. I'm sorry.
Look at you flipping my pieces already.
I know. And actually, speaking of Raditz, so I do want to address some Dragon Ball Z, because I know that both of you love Dragon Ball Z. You guys both, I mean, there's such a passion there, and I'm curious because prior to seeing the Dragon Ball Z cells come up, between like you guys and our like group of collectors, I never really thought about Dragon Ball Z, but now I see that Dragon Ball Zs are kind of like, I don't want to say the gold standard, but they're like the most popular, like the pinnacle of animation cells. I see a ton of other stuff, like you can go get like Batman animation cells or Gundam animation cells or SpongeBob, but Dragon Ball Z seems to be the pinnacle of that collectibles. Is there anything particular about it that is making it so popular and so desirable outside of just nostalgia, or is that like the biggest driving factor there?
I see it more so because we're in America and Dragon Ball Z is so loved here. And not that it's not loved around the world, because it is a very universal anime, and that is a really great reason why it's so widely collected. But it is one of the first major mainstream pieces of animes that came to Western culture.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that alone is huge. And so many of us that are now growing, that are now of age, that can afford this kind of stuff and spend, big money,
get those adult dollars,
30s, 40s, even 50s, they now can buy their favorite scenes from that show that they grew up on. And so that's why I see Dragon Ball Z a lot. Also, there is so much of it because there are so many episodes. So
it's another factor. Yeah, just to add on to that, it's a great question, Devin. I think one of the big reasons is because the popularity of Dragon Ball Z is hugely popular. And then you can make the argument that Pokemon is as well, which is even more popular technically than Dragon Ball, right? So the thing is, there are less Pokemon cells out there to collect, and they get kind of pricey, and it's harder to find than Dragon Ball cells. So I feel like
I think it's 144 episodes of Pokemon.
Right. Yeah. Well, Mikey, I know you have some Pokemon, Mikey. I've seen it.
They're out there. They're cool. They're out there.
They're cool. I think it was back in November. You had something with a Togepi on it that I really wanted, but I can't afford it. But those, but you know what? That stuff is really. I'm very curious to see like, an animation cell from the very first episode that Charizard appeared, like, to see like the value on that, the hype around something like that.
Any Charizard cell would be.
Yeah.
It's
astronomical.
5 figures easy for a Charizard.
Yeah. Charizard's big
Charizard
sell.
is king. Charizard is king.
Yeah, no, he is. But
Absolutely.
it's like it's one of those things. Dragon Ball is so popular and also worldwide, not even just in America. Like because of collecting Dragon Ball cells, I was able to make friends and meet people in Portugal and Italy and Spain and all these different countries, Hong Kong, Japan, of course. And it's so worldwide beloved, and it's just getting to that point where it's like Mike was talking about, the kids who were growing up watching it are getting to the point of they come of age where they have money and they want to collect from their favorite pieces of childhood history, and now they can afford it. And Dragon Ball is kind of the king of that. But that's not to say that there aren't other great animes and great pieces to get into, and there are a lot of good stuff. But when you go into the mainstream stuff, it's kind of going to be, it's mainstream for a reason, so you're going to see it.
Right.
Yeah.
There's levels to collecting. It's just like any other collectibles hobby. You start with the $10 stuff, and you can eventually move up to the $100 stuff. That's how it goes. And I think the internet gets that. Now I do have one question kind of regarding that climb in value. Is going to be something kind of akin to telling a key issue of a comic from just a regular issue. Something similar here is, I know that there's lead artists, the head artists, and I know that there are certain markings on animation cells, on like the production art, that will tell you what stage is this in, who's drawing this, and I know that might have some effect on its value, whether it's a lead artist, a secondary artist. Can you guys tell me maybe a little bit about some of those markings? Or I've seen like some animation cells that say like Bones Studio, and there's like already ink printed stuff on there that they're drawing within. I don't know anything about that. Can you guys tell me?
If you're talking about the separation of color, I mean, that's just like showing what like kind of shading and all that kind of stuff that's going to be done.
Yeah.
The initial is the Ganga, which is done by the key animator of that.
I can add a little bit to that, because there is a specific marking actually with certain frames. So I'm pulling.
I've seen some cells that will have like an A in the corner and then a B in the corner.
So I'll explain all that now. That's on all the cells, but there's different levels to it. So it's in a bag here, but this is the a Broly Duga from the Broly movie. So as you can see, that's over here. At the top right corner, you can see the A7 there. So the letter is going to signify the layer. So it kind of like Photoshop, the lowest letter, like letter A, the first letter is going to be the bottom layer. Letter B, letter C, letter D is going to be all these layers on top. So if there's a mouth, it could be letter B, because it'll be right on top. And then the number to the right of it signifies the frame. And now, in terms of what's actually a key frame, if you see here, the letter is circled. I don't know if you can see. Sorry, the number is circled, number 7. Mm-hmm. So that means it's a key frame, and it's not just an in-between shot. So that was done by a key animator. And then here's a cell. It's also in a bag here. You can kind of take a look. Yeah, it's a really cool Broly cell. But that's how they kind of signify the key frames from the in-between frames, and everything in between that would be kind of in-between shots done by in-between animators.
Okay, that's really awesome. Okay, and I mean, I'm assuming that if it's like a cell that says like A1, would that at all
generally
impact the value then? Or
yes, I was going to say that generally A1 is a keyframe, and A whatever E. So E means end. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's a sign called a tome sign, and that means it's going to be the end frame. So that's generally a keyframe too, because where it starts or where it ends, like it's kind of one of the last and first things that you see on screen. So it's not going to be a wonky frame, whereas more of an in-between shot would be between those.
That you want.
Yeah, I mean A1 end shots are really great because, like I said, like they're still images. They can kind of go on by itself. Like that image, like you could just hang by itself. It's a beautiful image of Broly. Whereas he's kind of in the middle of the punch, or he had an awkward face. It's a bit different. But the other way, that's not the only way to collect key cells. That's not the only way to kind of see the value in them. A lot of the value comes into the scenes where they're from. So kind of like comics is the key first appearances. So, just like in the shows, like the first appearance of Vegeta, first appearance of this character could be a pretty important cell. Or the scene, the scene's really memorable. This fight's really memorable. So if you really know the anime or the show, you'll be able to kind of pick out really important scenes where crucial things happen. And then the other thing goes with, okay, does it have a sketch? Does it have a background? Now, is the background original? And is it matching? So if it's got a matching original background, it might not be from a key scene, but if it's an amazing shot, like a front shot of the character, and it's a really good shot, it'll go for good money, right? So that's another factor of the value. And then if you got a good shot from a good scene with the matching background, that's like, that's the creme de la creme. You know, you can't ask for more than that. Like the one Mikey has there behind him, that Majin Vegeta. So Mikey, bring it closer to the camera.
Yeah,
show
yeah,
them.
come show us. I'll do the thing again. Wow.
So that
Holy
one,
cow.
yeah, that one's sweet because I mean that's one of the most iconic Majin Vegeta scenes where he's kind of fighting. He's trying to fight against Babidi's control, and he's trying to overpower it. And it's just a crazy scene. And that image specifically is recreated everywhere in video games. People get tattoos of them.
The day I bought this, I finished paying it off. I saw someone. I went to KamehamehaCon. I set up there, and I saw someone with this exact tattoo on their body.
Wow.
I was like, oh,
it's like that exact image. That's the reference image. So it's a really famous image of Majin Vegeta. But so to own a piece like that is like it's a huge piece of history. It's beautiful. So a lot of people, yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. So now I do want to know. I would love it if you guys could just flex on us for a little bit and show us your favorite Cels if you have them handy. Mike, I know you just showed us the Vegeta. I know that Yaniv just showed us the Brawly, but I want to see some really cool shit. So
Mikey brought some stuff out.
Yeah, my two favorites are unfortunately are in the vault, but I can send you some photos of those later.
Okay.
First appearance of Final Form Frieza and first appearance of Vegeta, which are just
wow. So he has them. See, God, that's cool.
Yeah. The Vegeta really one's really cool. Yeah,
that's my newest large purchase. And then also I recently purchased some incredible Dragon Ball backgrounds that are just next level that I don't have with me that I can send you photos of. Let's see here. Oh, an anime that I love that doesn't really have animation Cels. That this is one of my favorite pieces that I own. This is of Yugi. It's one of
it's a Gengar, I believe, right? It's the Gengar. Yeah.
Oh, it's his face on 2 pages.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a pan.
4 Yugi pans I've ever seen. One of 2 in the chainmail armor, and this is the best one of that I've seen. So super collectible.
That's awesome.
That one's super cool. These 2 are also some of my top favorites. I mean, you just can't beat these 2 together. This is right when Goku's finally, it's not even worth fighting Frieza anymore. Frieza's now cut in half, broken, and Goku's just like, you're not even worth fighting anymore.
Yeah.
That's
you're done.
It's classic Frieza saga.
This thing incredible. Love it with all my heart.
That's so cool, dude. I'm very jealous. I gosh, what do I have that I can even show off? Oh Lord. All right, now I gotta see if I can live up to that. Okay, I've got some cool stuff. It's not as cool as y'all's, but it's all right. All right, first and foremost, I'm gonna put Mikey in the big screen so I can do it. But I have got my Batman Beyond. It is signed by Bruce Timm and the voice actor for Terry McGinnis. That's a
really good one.
That's a nice shot.
I'm really happy with that one. That's one of my absolute favorites and one of my first animation cell purchases that I did without bothering the 2 of you. And then I've got this really cool Ed and Eddie piece of Double D. I had another one of Ed and Eddie. I believe it's not like one of the painted backgrounds, but I believe that is the background from the episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of the that's the thing. A lot of the American shows, they would do that when they sold their cells. They would take a scan of the background, which is great. So everyone's cells can get the original background pretty much, just a print of it.
And then Yaniv, you know this one is the the Scar
opening shot. Yeah,
opening shot of Scar. Yeah. I love Scar. I love my Scar. It's fucking rad. But I think that those are the only 3 animation cells that I own that are like worth showing off or talking about. Now, Yaniv, I believe it is your turn, sir, to.
It's okay, Mikey prepped some stuff. Mikey, we both own cells together and a lot of stuff like that. So yeah, so
that's my main partner. I wouldn't be in the same position without him. I can't say, it's a good position, but No, genuinely, I wouldn't know near as much of the information without him. I attribute a lot of my knowledge, most of my animation knowledge to him, and a lot of my comic book knowledge, a lot of my collectible knowledge.
You and I are akin in this, whereas I would probably not have my collection the way it is without that that man.
This is the first animation cell I ever purchased.
Yeah, that was a good buy.
That is cool. Hold on, I gotta go. That is so cool.
And it's a beautiful shot. It's the exact same frame as it is in the manga, and I mean, it's just a perfect shot of Final Form Frieza.
That's
beautiful.
Man. Okay, so now I guess we're already at like the 30-minute mark. I told you guys this was going to be a pretty fast episode. I mean, do you guys have in mind any particular anime or cartoons that are like up and coming that you think that if anybody wants to get into animation cells, like now's the time to pick up those cells, or the ones that are still kind of cheap enough to buy for a newbie? What is a good starting point for somebody to buy cells? I mean, what is the general entry value? Where should they start?
The way I look at price is kind of relative. It's like, I still see, like Pokemon, for instance, which is very expensive. I look at Pokemon cards and I see the prices that those are bringing and versus the prices that the animation cells are bringing. And I'm like, okay, there's still tons of room of growth there, but they're still very pricey. So versus something like a Batman Beyond piece like yours, which is relatively inexpensive, only maybe $500 or something like that, but it's beautiful and I love Batman Beyond. I recently purchased a bunch of cells from the first episode of Batman Beyond with Bruce Wayne still in the Batman Beyond outfit. So love those. And same thing with first Harley Quinn from Joker's Favor, which is Harley Quinn appeared in the Batman animated series before she ever did in the comic book by right. And the first 6-figure animation cell from America was the publicity cell for Harley Quinn, which sold for over $50,000 a little less than a year ago. And Yaniv and I tried to bid on it. It started at $12,000.
We thought we were cool at $50K. We're like, oh yeah, we got this.
Like, well, we thought we either had it or we were gonna get blown out of the water.
Yeah, we got decimated.
Blown out of the water. It wasn't even close. In 2 seconds, like it was at like 50 or 60 grand. And we're like, all right.
Oh boy, and you're just like, nope, we're good. We are okay. Off.
Kept climbing.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
That's funny. Well, I think at the end of the day, buy what you love. So look up a lot of the shows that you loved growing up and see if they have animation cells. And if you really love a lot of the American cartoons, then that's great, because there's a lot of stuff that you can get for affordable prices. And
okay, hold on.
Now it's crazy. Yeah.
That is cool. The Misty,
wow. Ones. I'm in love with it, and I've got all the matching drawings that are associated with it as well.
The background too, it's crazy.
Matching background, everything. It's like 4 or 5.
That's just so cool.
But it's gorgeous and relatively inexpensive compared to the cards. Now, this is still easily a 5-figure piece, but in my eyes, when you talk about the rarity of these things, I think that this has still a lot of room for growth. And a lot of the Pokemon cells still have a lot of room for growth. Same thing with Dragon Ball Z, a lot of room for growth for key scenes. And, as people start getting more into, anime and or just American animation in general, people see the value in that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it's all growing.
An interesting question that pops up to me, and this one's for you, Yaniv. You mentioned a second ago, you said if it has animation cells. Now, I know that at a certain point in time, because I think we talked about this with Full Metal Alchemist, at a certain point in time, somebody stopped doing... who's doing the tapping, by the way? Is that you, Yaniv?
That was your game.
This fucker.
I stopped.
No, but I remember... I remember at some point, like you were like, oh yeah, like they're at some point there stopped being animation cells, and they just did production drawings and then started going digital, and now a lot of it is just all digital, not having any animation cells. So I mean, do you know like what is the time period? What I mean, when did
Yeah.
like
2000, 2001, 2002.
Yeah, it also depends on the publisher, but generally, once the 2000s hit, most of especially the American stuff, has transferred over to CGI, and then the Japanese stuff, there are some smaller shows and movies that were kind of done, like OVAs, these kind of one-shot anime movies that were done in the early 2000s, cell animated, but generally when the 2000s hit, most were starting to
the animation that they
I
were
mean,
able
technology evolved, right? I mean,
Yeah.
CGI with the advent of computer graphics, like, you know, they didn't need to spend, you know, countless amount of hours coloring all these cells when they could just draw it, scan it, digitally color it. You know, the paint bucket, boop, 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 you're done.
I wonder if that led to like a mass loss of
Kira,
jobs.
the
Like
backgrounds for those. Oh my god.
Yeah, I think there is a loss of style. I think at least of style. And, you know, there's something about a cell animated 2D feature that the newer shows can't recapture. You know, is it
cheaper, like Vampire D, which I just watched those movies. The art for that is like, you know, on par with Ghibli and Akira and all them. And that is relatively cheap and a really cool storyline. And it's just, it's just so cool what they were able to do back in the day. Like Cowboy Bebop, like on my shirt, like the space backgrounds for those all done.
I would love to get my hands on a Bebop cell.
I've never seen a space background. I've never seen, you know, a fully complete Bebop. And I own some Bebop. I own one Bebop Ganga, and I own a few.
Can I buy some Bebop from you? Can I buy some Bebop?
You can try.
I'll try. Can I try to buy some Bebop?
They're not cheap. They're not cheap. There's a beautiful one up on Yahoo Japan right now of Spike and his beloved Julia, which is very rare to see them both together.
That's cool.
And it's a Ganga shot of them, and it's just, that one is really, really special.
I would love to get Cowboy. I mean, I'm rewatching it right now. I think I watch the whole series through at least like once a year, and that's probably by far one of my favorite anime. So I would love to figure out like how to get my hands on some Bebop. That would be really cool.
Tell your soul.
Yeah.
Okay. They're crazy.
remortgage your house.
So now, how does one like? I mean, is it just word of mouth? I mean, are there, outside of like eBay where you never know if it's real or not? You know, I'm sure that there are ways that are really niche to tell if something's real or if you know a reputable seller. But I mean, like outside of meeting word of mouth dealers, I mean, where can folks go to buy like reliably authentic animation cells? Where can people look? And something that's affordable, not just where the high end stuff goes. But like, do you guys have any resources that we can share with the interwebs?
Well, there's Yahoo Japan, which you have to use a proxy website. I personally use Zen Market, but there's a bunch of them that are out there.
Mostly that's for anime.
And that's for anime. And you know, that's a really good place to start and to view and you know, find that kind of stuff. Then also just eBay, Macari. Those are also great places. That's where you can find more American stuff. But as far as it goes for authenticating and reputability, it's there's reputable sellers, but you know, a lot of it you really need to go and check yourself, because you can find things that are, you know, technically, you know, cells that were part of the production process, but they were not actually used in the show. So there was just a Vampire D cell that was sold on Yahoo Japan, a really awesome shot of his pan parasite. And I watched the anime to make sure that cell perfectly matched up, and it didn't for that scene. And it's still sold for, you know, a couple $1,000. But if it was that, but I think, you know, if people realized it wasn't actually used frame, it probably would have sold for a lot less. And it was described a little like suspiciously, so that's what kind of gave it away for me, that
interesting
might not be, you know, 100%, you know, the real deal. but it was still, technically production art that was, used. And I don't know if it was just a cell that was then scrapped, or if it was one that was used as a production piece, which is, or like an advertisement piece, which is called Hankin, which we haven't really talked about. But those are ones that are, used as either trading cards or signs or video game covers, or, anything that's used as promotional art. And that is not used for the show. And those are super, super cool. It could be just a puzzle or a notebook. And some of that stuff is incredible, incredible art. And
I do like the idea of like having to photo match it. That's pretty cool. I remember Yaniv had me help him do that once. It was it was like a what was it, like 12 shots from like a
from FMA.
Yeah, it was Full Metal Alchemist, but it was the movie. It was The Conqueror of Shambhala. And like it took me like 3 hours and like, the help of like the Full Metal Alchemist Reddit page of just like watching the movie and talking to people I know. And we finally found it. Yeah.
No, you have to do that sometimes.
It could be some work, but it's part of the fun too. When you buy a new cell and you're like, oh wow, I can't wait to find, my cell that I own on the screen. I can't wait to see it. So it's kind of a little fun game that you're like trying to find it. But definitely, the biggest thing is always screen match your cells before buying them too. You could always just check. Doesn't hurt to check. A lot of times you might not know where a cell's from. You have a random cell of Goku or Chi-Chi, like no background, they're not holding anything. There's no indication of where it's from. Like it's going to be almost impossible to screen match. There's some whizzes out there that like they know, oh, Goku with this hairstyle by this animator, they might be able to kind of help pinpoint it. But overall it's tough. But that's part of the fun, and making sure that if you buy a piece, you buy it from someone that you trust. So someone reputable is really important too. And
but
that way
they might not know 100%.
They might not know where. Yeah, of course. It's not guaranteed. You always want
exact science, right?
You always want to check yourself for sure.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I that's really interesting, and now here in my head, I'm like, okay, so like moving from like animation cells to like the movie posters, and then we get into the whole talk of collecting movie posters and blah blah blah, and that's a whole market that's doing its own thing. But anyways, that is very helpful actually for a lot of folks. I mean, you two are the ones that I talk to about animation cells. So like if I'm gonna go look for one or hunt something down, you guys are the ones that are gonna be like, hey, like
come to us.
Where this so I mean, I'm always happy to send people y'all's direction, but I don't want to inundate you guys with messages. But like it is good to find somebody who is reputable, somebody who maybe, and like you said, you can't exactly know every single animation cell, but it's good to find somebody who knows what the fuck they're talking about. I've decided throughout this whole conversation, I'm going to corner the market on like mouths, hands, like any like
you're going to steal all the extremitities,
all the random body
parts, and then you can put them all together and you can make this deformed creation.
I'm going to corner
and call that
market.
Devin.
All right. Somebody's going to be out there with the cell that has a Goku with no mouth, and they're going to have to talk to me. All right, that's
you want the mouth.
That's how I make my fortune. Okay.
Oh God.
I'll throw the ears in with it. Well, guys, I think we're coming out on about 45 minutes. I think that, I mean, I've covered everything that I could have wanted to know or learn about animation cells. I mean, did you guys have any last minute thoughts that you guys just want to share to, fledgling collectors or the community at large, just about this particular part of the collecting world? Anything that you guys want to impart, or just something fun or fun facts, anything really?
Yaniv?
I don't know. Keep calm and keep collecting cells. Keep calm and collect cells.
Keep calm. We're gonna make that into a t-shirt. Okay. Well, guys, I'm really happy that I had you two on here. I've been trying to hound you guys for this for a while. So thank you for letting me bother you and take you out of your busy schedules again. I appreciate it. I love you both. I'm excited to come down to Texas for my birthday and drink and eat with you guys.
Come hang out.
Oh yeah. But I'm gonna put you guys out of the conversation for just a moment so I can say goodbye to the internet, and I'll catch up with you two in a sec. All right.
All right. See ya.
Okay. Thank you, fellas. Okay, internet. Well, that was an awesome chat I had with my two buddies about animation cells. I hope that you guys learned something because I know I learned a lot. If you want to give them a follow, make sure you follow Yaniv at Strayflexin on Instagram and Mikey at Mikey Comics. That will be, Campos will put a thingy above here so you can see it. But in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again next Saturday. Thank you for tuning into season 2 of Comics and Stuff and the new Comics and Stuff Paper or Plastic podcast, which you'll be seeing with me and Campos. But until next Saturday, I will look forward to seeing you guys. And until then, take care.